to the delayed February meeting of the Davidson Town Board of Commissioners. So about this time last week we were being hammered by freezing weather, and tonight it's about 70 degrees outside. So welcome to North Carolina weather, I guess is all we can say. We have several announcements to make, and I'll ask if anyone else has any other announcements, but Christina has asked me to make the following announcements. One is that and Kim have applications for the gallery crawl and art on the green are now available on the website, and the deadline is Friday, February the 28th for interest. We will have next Tuesday, February 25th, our regular work session on the fourth Tuesday. It will begin at 6 p.m. preceded by a pre-meeting at 4 p.m. So meetings next Tuesday at 4 and 6 p.m. Are there other announcements of interest to the community? Okay. Mr. Bryce, we have a couple of changes to the agenda. Let's just make sure we have those down. Pat?
The one I know for sure we're not going to act on tonight, Mayor, is item 6B.
All right, we will delete item 6B from tonight's agenda and discuss that at our work session next week. And I think item 6A, we would simply like to change the wording of that action, and that from how it is printed there to something along the lines of acknowledge that the foreclosure procedure that occurred several years ago regarding the South Main Square condominium property nullifies and terminates any deed restrictions that were on that property, and to authorize the town manager to sign a statement acknowledging that. So we'll make it really a minor adjustment to that action. Are there any other changes to that? The next item on our agenda is time for public comment. Are there public comments from anyone about issues regarding our community? All right. We have several items on the consent agenda tonight. They involve the approval of our regular meetings in January and early February, the acceptance of 2 streets for town maintenance responsibility, the approval of some tax levy adjustments, the approval of 2 budget amendments as were previously described, the adoption of the municipal speed ordinance enacted in repealed zones regarding North Carolina 115 Main Street, and the approval of Stephanie Schroeder as the Davidson College representative to the town livability board. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move we approve the consent agenda.
All right, motion's been made. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
So moved. Thank you very much. All right, that takes us to our new business, and the first item of new business is to consider item A, the acknowledgement that the foreclosure nullified and terminated, that a foreclosure procedure nullified and terminated the deed restrictions on the South Main Square condominium property, and to authorize the town manager to sign a letter acknowledging this. Is there discussion and or request for action?
Does this apply to all 3 of the units that were originally in the program, or only one?
Just the one that was not sold at the time of the foreclosure. So
Can you
just
specify
the other 2 are
which
still
address that is, or anything?
Not unit number.
Or is that understood which one it is?
It's the only one that's
That this applies to?
yes.
Okay.
And it does have a specific unit address. If you
Okay. Okay.
All right.
So does this confirm what has happened by operation of law?
It does.
Okay.
To further that, just that the foreclosure negated the restriction.
Right. Foreclosure, that's exactly right.
So moved.
All right, motion has been made to approve the acknowledgement, or to acknowledge this occurrence and this state of the situation. Any further discussion or questions? If not, if you're ready to vote, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
So moved. Thank you very much. Our next item of business is to consider the request of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Charlotte-Mecklenburg Hospital Authority to amend the Davidson Planning Ordinance map from flex campus planning to conditional planning area on the tax parcel identified in your agenda located on Davidson Concord Road. This was the subject of a public hearing at our last meeting. So we have received public comment. Ben McCrary is available for questions or comments, and I'll ask at this time that the discussion be contained to the commissioners and to the staff at this point. Ben, would you like to just say anything and follow up to last month's discussion?
Yeah, just one note, since the public hearing we held last month, the planning board considered the item at its January meeting and unanimously recommended the approval of the sign. In addition, they wanted me to pass along another resolution that they passed, that considering the nature of 73 being a new growth corridor for Davidson, they'd like for you all to consider prioritizing a corridor study along M73 to study signage specifically as we move forward for new growth. So I want to pass that along and pass along the recommendation on the sign specifically.
Yes, sir.
I would like to note for the record that one of our major clients is CHS at McIntosh Law Firm where I practice. It is my understanding that whether this particular matter is approved or disapproved will have zero economic effect on the firm and on me, but I believe it's better to get it out the door.
Thank you, sir. So acknowledged.
I'd like to also acknowledge that I work for CHS and I will be impacted by this decision, so I'd like to be asked to be excused from this.
All right.
Without going into more detail than you're comfortable, can you
Sure.
give just a little bit more reason for the financial?
Our firm actually designed the sign, so if we don't approve this, I could actually be getting more work out of it, so it has an impact on me.
And it will have a direct impact on
Direct
you.
impact on me personally.
Yeah.
I guess I'm asking these folks to let me be excused from voting, is that correct?
Yeah, they're, under one of the statutory procedures, you don't have to be recused. You can, because it's a zoning matter in which you've got a direct, substantially, readily identifiable financial interest, you don't need to be excused. However, out of abundance of caution in baseball, what you just said, if I would proceed under both statutes, the one in which you asked to be excused, and see what your fellow town board members have to say about that.
All right, so we'll turn to the commissioners.
Lest I get ahead of the game, do you agree regarding my situation?
I do. If there's no financial impact to the vote tonight, then you're not qualified for being excused from voting. I agree with that, yes.
All right, the floor is open for Commissioner Desks' request to be recused. I want to leave the room. While we talk about it.
One point you and I had discussed, you work directly on the sign, different from other signage that has been approved in this town. You did not work on the sign directly.
Right.
Like an MSC, you
MSC,
did not.
right, I did the project, but I didn't
They're a
work on
client
it.
of yours and a client.
So it seems like the challenging thing on these is always, it's not only direct, isn't there language to the effect of significant, substantial,
It has to be.
consequential?
It has to be direct and substantial and readily identifiable. Substantial is granted difficult to, it's a continuum. If he gets an extra $1 in fees, that's probably not substantial. If he gets $100,000 in fees, it probably is substantial. My guess is it's probably somewhere in the middle, and I don't think it's appropriate to ask him what his fees are going to be. but if, I think he is saying, in his opinion, it's substantial, and clearly readily identifiable and direct. I mean, if there would be a direct, immediate consequence of a no vote on the information. What does work both ways, either yes vote or no vote.
Right. Yeah, I guess in this situation, we kind of have to rely on Brian in this case to tell us whether it's substantial or not. We're not going to ask for obviously contracts and things like that. I just want to make sure that we're not setting a really low threshold. Should I repeat myself? Threshold, no, a really low threshold for people being recused.
Right.
Because what happens then, I think, is, we have matters before us that just because we have some interest, affiliation, association, we recuse ourselves, and oftentimes, we're the ones that know the most about it, and really should be the ones that are participating in the conversation, discussion, and voting, on it. I think when we, down the road, talk about affordable housing, that involves, and impacts me, but I know an awful lot about it, as do others out there, so. I just wanna make sure that this isn't, if we do vote to recuse Brian, and it doesn't establish a precedent that says, just because there's some affiliation, you gotta step aside.
Yeah, I think it was just as in Jim's, position, if it was just generally did work for the hospital, that doesn't rise to having a direct financial impact on this particular vote. But since his work is on the matter that's being voted on, I think, in my opinion, it does.
And also, I voted, when we voted for the annexation, I voted for that, I didn't have to be recused, I just acknowledged it, to me it was different.
I don't think in this situation we could set a precedent, because he's allowed to contribute to the conversation, which is not the, to your point, to contribute to the conversation as can.
Is that true?
I
If
think
I were doing myself, I could still participate in the conversation, or I just
Leaving out to.
well, there is, unlike, there's another statute having to do with contract that says you can't talk. This statute doesn't say that, but I would think that you would prefer not to.
I would.
You don't have to participate in the discussion.
Well, my point was to affordable housing.
Yeah.
Builder, he can still contribute to the affordable housing conversation that we have, even though he is a builder. as much as-
Yes.
So do we need a motion to recuse or not recuse? Is that-
I would move that based on Commissioner Jeanette's attestation, is that a good word? That this has a substantial and direct financial bearing on his firm and consequently him, that we would vote to recuse him from this discussion, this vote.
Thank you very much. The motion has been made to recuse Commissioner Jeanette. Are there questions or comments? If not, are you ready to vote? The four of you would vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved.
We have a code of silence.
All right. You now may be silent, Commissioner.
That's what she
We have before us then the consideration of this request, and I'll open the floor for discussion. Invite you to converse with staff if necessary, and hopefully we can reach a conclusion.
So I did hear one comment coming out of the planning review board that they thought that the lettering on the sign was a little bit small when you're driving from the east direction, so I don't think, see, it just you guys have had it through branding and you people are comfortable with the size of the typeface is appropriate for location.
It seems like the conversation has been focused on the sign, which is kind of the blue and white portion of that, but not the surrounding monument or stone, is that correct?
That's correct. So the architectural elements do not contribute to the overall sign size as we calculate.
And are there any guidelines, regulations, ordinance, whatever that pertains to the stone that surrounds that sign?
That's right. So on this exhibit down below, our current ordinance would require a single post that is 1 foot by 1 foot. That's our current regulation. But
I
outside
guess
of
I'm
that,
asking,
there
if
are-
we were to vote to approve this, they could do that 24-foot square sign, but they could conceivably do. Because there was a lot of discussion, I think, at the planning board meeting about holding them to that drawing that you see right there. And then you brought up the First Amendment.
Well,
Second Amendment.
I think the nature of that conversation was about regulating the content of the sign face itself. So the language that's on it and the letter height, not necessarily the architectural elements. And currently, we don't have any regulations about letter height or the content of the language of the sign itself.
So Rodney, is your question, could the sign be bigger if they put bigger stone on either side?
Yeah, my understanding is that the sign maximum would be fixed at 24 square feet, but is there latitude to greatly increase the size of the monument portion of it?
Yeah,
The
if you were
stone.
to approve this sign tonight, this exhibit would be what we would use at staff level as reference when we
Okay.
approve a permit. Including the
I understand
architectural.
the planning board voted unanimously in favor. Do you agree?
Yes.
I think it's important that anybody traveling on that highway, particularly in need of healthcare services, and not everybody's gonna be familiar with the site, so it makes a lot of sense to me that it stand out and be able to see it, respond to it.
Oh, I was gonna say this.
You can't talk.
Someone like to propose an action.
I propose an action. I propose that we vote on the rezoning of the sign.
All right. The motion is made to approve the request as stated and discussed tonight in previous meetings. Is there further discussion or questions? Are there further discussions or questions? All right, you ready to vote? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you very much. It is so moved.
So that is our follow-up on the planning board's other recommendation, which was a overall look at signage and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, they understand that we're working through the planning ordinance currently, and their request to you all was to direct staff to prioritize the sign section, similarly to your direction on the village infill overlay standards a couple months back. And so if it's so desired, we could bring the sign ordinance to you all sooner than what was on our schedule we presented 2 weeks ago.
But the sign wasn't on the schedule when we looked at it, right, because we added it during the
That's right,
discussion?
that's- yeah.
So where is it on the schedule? Do you
We can,
put it in?
yeah, we can.
So do you all want to move the signs up on the schedule? The ordinance?
I'd rather have the whole schedule. You have to have it.
Let's make a note to add that to our future discussions. That's a good suggestion. Thank you, Ben, and thank you, folks. I look forward to your operation there. I look forward to your opening in April.
Yeah, and there'll be a grand opening April, grand opening is, that fifth, April fifth.
April 5th.
We'll be open for business April seventh.
Congratulations.
Great, how are you?
We have two remaining items in old business tonight. The first is both to consider approval of budget amendments. The first is, we'll take them one at a time, to consider the budget amendment 2014-15 to fund a fiscal impact analysis. Let's see. Could Kim Fleming just really quickly in one sentence refresh this discussion that we had last month?
Yes, fiscal impact analysis is a study that we have half of the funding for in our current budget, so this would be for the balance of the funding to complete that within, this is longer than the 7, so it's an awfully long run on one. And what the fiscal impact analysis is the cost to the town that shows what our cost of service and what our revenues would be for potential residential and commercial development in town, as well as infrastructure. Does that do it?
All right, and I recall that the funding for this is part of an anonymous donation to the town, and the staff proposed that we consider this as part of that, the use of part of those funds. Mr. Fuller?
Quick question, please, Kim. Do you believe it will be useful to you in the town, and do you recommend it?
Yes, yes.
far as the donation goes, my understanding, there's no stipulations whatsoever, no direction, no timing, got to spend it within a certain amount of.
Correct.
I guess, I mean, I still have the same concern that I expressed when we brought this up, whatever meeting we brought it up. Given that we've got this donation, is it the best use of, that money? And I do feel that, as much as I value the work that you're doing, and undoubtedly it would be helpful, I still just somehow feel that it will tell us what I think we know. And that regardless of what it tells us, what will our action be? Because we're not like a business that can study our costs to deliver services and change our revenues accordingly. We have to treat everyone equally. So even if it's costing us more to service A versus B, we still charge them the same. So, generally,
So Rodney, I think we intuitively know what we know, but we don't quite have fact base to know what we know. So I think it gives us a fact base, and you're right. What we can do is use it to zone parts of the town to determine how much should be commercial, how much should be residential, make it sustainable.
Or at least have the information to be able to make an informed decision. I guess for me, we had Kathleen Rose do this, I'll say elaborate, maybe that's too strong a word, and this is the next obvious step to really taking the information that she's provided us, and, which city economic development is up at, the top of our list, and you have half the money, is that right? Is that what you said? It's almost like a matching grant, isn't it? So,
Yes.
I'd like to see us go ahead and finish that project.
And what's the time frame?
6 weeks.
6 weeks, that's right.
Could I ask one other question? I don't know if this is a fair question, but did you all, maybe it's you, William and Don, did you all kind of talk about where this money would go, and are you all kind of in agreement that this is a good place for it?
Yes.
So you can kind of weigh, okay, we can put it here, we can put it there.
We had three sort of needs that we didn't have full funding for, and in some cases, any funding for.
Right.
The third one, we decided we could wait until next year's budget, and the other two are before you tonight.
Thank you.
So I move we approve this budget amendment.
All right, motion's been made to approve the budget amendment as presented. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, are you ready to vote? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved. Thank you very much. The second and related item in old business is to consider approval of the budget amendment regarding the installation of an in-house payroll system. Cindy Jones, you discussed this with us last month. Could you just quickly refresh us all on that subject?
So, we've been, for the last 2 years, we've been preparing payroll through an outside source, ADP. This would allow us to bring payroll back in-house, but would also allow us personnel, insurance, and benefit modules that would help with the personnel management, employee benefits, training records, insurance, all these things can be kept in-house instead of on paper in the file. We can have better management of those records.
All right, questions or comments? Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Did I remember correctly that in a relatively short number of years, we should be able to cover the amount of this expenditure? And then secondly, my eternal question, do you recommend it?
That's correct. We should save $10,000 over the processing. There will be some annual fees for the software maintenance, but we should still save $10,000 over the processing fees, and we could recover it then in a couple of years. And yes, I do recommend it.
Is there any penalty in leaving ADP?
There is not. We have to give them 30 days notice.
And have we figured out the data conversion challenge?
Well, we're a little bit closer to thinking, we're looking at July 1. We are converting the software in the late March and early April timeframe, and we need to have that done, the financial software, we need to have that done before we undertake this. And so, and we need to do it at the end of a quarter, a payroll quarter, to make it easier for the reporting purposes. So we're looking at June 30. Of course, there'll be some work prior to that to get ready for it.
And this again uses that anonymous contribution.
It does.
today to approve the budget amendment as presented. Are there questions or further questions or comments? Hearing none, if you're ready to vote, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
It's so moved. Ladies and gentlemen, it's 6:28 p.m. My privilege to announce that we have completed our agenda for tonight, and we stand adjourned. Thank you for being with us. Wow. It was that was good.